if you are willing to work hard and be consistent, because it's not about perfection. You don't have to be perfect, but you have to be consistent. You can have an amazing life well into your 60s, 70s, even 80s. You have so many more valuable years where you can contribute and achieve your dreams and just have an amazing life, but it's going to take daily healthy choices. So again, focusing on that future and being excited about it because it's there and it's waiting for you, but you have to make these daily choices that are going to get you there.
Welcome to Personalized by Vitamin Lab, the show where we dive deep into the world of personalization in healthcare. I'm your host, Dr. David Deiser. Please remember that the following discussion is for educational purposes only, and it's not intended to diagnose or treat any disease. Speak with your healthcare practitioner first before integrating anything that you learned today. Join us as we explore the remarkable stories, breakthroughs, and possibilities that come with the pursuit of personalized healthcare. Welcome back to Personalized. I'm your host, Dr. David Deiser. Thanks so much for tuning in. Today on the show, I spoke with Denise Kirtley, the founder of Rebellion Body. I wanted to interview Denise because she's the perfect example of someone following an individualized program and having incredible success. At 50 years old, Denise went from out of shape, fatigued, gaining weight, to a competitive bodybuilder in just over 2 years. She transformed her health, lost 50 pounds, and found purpose in her life. Her purpose? To help other women to become the very best versions of themselves and to thrive in midlife and beyond. In our episode, she highlights the dramatic impact bodybuilding and strength training and resistance training has had on her life. She has an inspiring story that I think you're all going to enjoy. Please enjoy my episode with Denise Kirtley. I'm here with Denise Kirtley. Welcome to the podcast, Denise.
Thank you for having me, David. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's Halloween.
It's Halloween. We're recording this on Halloween.
Yep.
A spooky version of Personalized.
There you go.
In the spirit of Halloween, we're stepping outside of our normal realm today and speaking with someone who has actually transformed their own life. We're speaking with you, Denise, because I want to highlight transformations. I think we should be talking about success stories.
Yes.
So you're really the first time on this podcast we've had an interview where we're interviewing someone who is a success story. And I want to talk about your personal experience with pulling one lever, changing one thing. It may be an assortment of things, but I know one major thing I really want to dive deep into. Pulling that one lever that can change everything, that can have a positive cascade, positive downstream events. It seems like you have been through that, but I'd love to hear it in your own words. Can you tell us a bit about your transformation?
Sure. So, I'll back up and tell you a little bit about my story. So my story is, I was approaching 50 years old, and like many women, I had not focused on myself for a long time. I think, we get into the cycle, either we're focusing on children or careers. For me, it was career, and I'd sort of lost myself. And as I became perimenopausal and things started to change, I started to gain weight, and I just woke up one day and I didn't recognize myself anymore. I'd gained quite a bit of weight. I was almost 200 pounds. I just hit a wall. I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And really for me, my aha moment was, and I've talked about this, my wedding rings didn't fit anymore. So I had to actually take off my wedding rings because my fingers were just too fat, right? And so that for me, it was like enough, like this has got to change. And I literally, that week, changed my life. And so I think the most important thing, if we boil it down to one thing, what is the most important thing about transforming your life? You have to make a firm decision to do so. I really think the deciding is the hardest part, because once you decide, there's a lot of ways to get fit and get in shape and change your life and get healthy, right? There's not one path. I have a path I think is the best that worked for me, and I'll share that with you. But I really think it's about that deciding. And I think getting to that point where you're relentless about making this change, that is the key to transformation.
I wanted to talk about that. It's like you took the first point from my notes and just went right for it.
Sorry.
Because the question I had, no, don't be sorry. That's incredible.
Yeah.
We're on the same wavelength. It's kind of spooky for
good.
today.
Spooky.
The reason I find that interesting that you went there first is because I wanted to ask you a question about the mental shift. What is the shift required Now, your story, the way that you approach it, the way that you describe it initially is this emotional, I would think, you didn't say emotional, but I would think there's this emotional shakeup, this little mix up inside that says this is too much, right? When the ring doesn't fit.
Yes.
Is there another way? Is there a way that, as remember, you're speaking with practitioners mostly here on this show, trying to help people make change before that emotional thing occurs? I'm interested to hear your perspective on this. Was there any signs before this that maybe, you were trying things or had things not worked, for example? Or did you really need to be, really shaken up to make some change?
Unfortunately, I think change often comes out of discomfort, and it has to be a tremendous amount of discomfort on the borderline of pain, whether that's physical or mental. I think that's usually where change is rooted and born out of, right? I think it's harder because it's a hard path. So if you're going to change your complete life, you have to have some really compelling reasons to do so. So for me, in addition to just not my ring not fitting, I was pre-diabetic. I have arthritis in both knees, I discovered. My doctor was like, you have to lose weight because I have a lot of stairs to get up in my home, and it was painful. I had to stop in the middle of my stairs every day to get to the top because my knees really hurt. And he's like, you need to get this weight off. Even those things really didn't make me want to change until it was just a culmination of things. It's like a lot of things had to happen for me to really get that uncomfortable to want to change. But I do think, and this is another important piece of it, I had to have a real vision of what my life would look like if I made this change. And I had to believe that the quality would be so much better, that it was something I was really drawn to. And I had been to a lot of Tony Robbins events. I was in sales. And so I really drew upon those where he talks about having a very detailed vision of what your life would be like if you stepped into your goal. And so what I did was I wrote that down. And I thought about from the morning I woke up and put my feet on the ground, what would my life look like? How would I feel? How would I show up, in my relationships, show up differently in my work? What would my energy be like? What would my mood be like? What were all the things that would change for the better if I did this? So I think if someone's not going to make a change just out of discomfort, because sometimes it has to be extreme for us to do that. And I would say my case was, borderline extreme. I was having some really difficult health issues. I think the other way to do it is just to really have such a compelling, positive vision of what your life could be like in the future, that could drive someone towards change as well. But they have to really be focused on that and use that as an anchor. And that really was my anchor when days got tough.
Well, I think it's quite profound. I think part of the reason I'm here right now is because of processes I learned from Tony Robbins and envisioning the future. And yeah, I'm an early adopter. My wife and I are early adopters of readings in self-improvement. But you combined two things here that might be valuable for the audience to consider as part of a framework for motivating someone. The objective data. The doctor said, okay, there's too much happening here. The subjective data, we'll put that in the same group. I feel pain. It's not comfortable what's happening with me. And then you combined it with this second pillar, right, which was the vision. I could be free of this. There's evidence to suggest if I do this thing or that thing, then these other things will be less. And let's combine that. And here's what it will be like. And then it sounds like you stepped into that feeling and you envisioned yourself feeling good. Is that what you did? Did you have a process where you sort of meditating or focused, doing conscious thought around those feelings?
I didn't. I'm not a meditator. I tried so hard to get into it. It's just not my thing. But I did really every day picture myself as that person that I wanted to be if I were to achieve my goal. The other thing, because there were two things. So I made the decision to change born out of pain and discomfort. But what kept me on track was that vision. And so immediately when you start to make this change, you start to feel better pretty quickly. There's just little wins, right? And I focused on those little wins. And what I did was, as I started to lose weight, I would take progress pictures every week. When I was tempted to get off track or give up or had hard days, I would look and see visually how far I'd come. And that really kept me on track because I didn't want to sort of lose all the progress I had made. I felt proud of myself, you know, when I looked at those. And I really, again, focused on what the future could look like if I just kept going. So really progress photos kept me really on track when things were difficult.
Oh, that's great insight as well. That's great insight. Progress photos can make a big difference, especially when you're not seeing change on the scale. And if you don't have a body composition scale, right? If you're not watching muscle mass, if you can see the shape of your body change, it's so helpful. Were you working with a team? Who were your team members? How did you know what to do?
So I had done it all. First of all, I had done every fad diet. I had tried everything, right? Like most people, I had tried all the quick fixes, and I knew that this wasn't going to be a quick fix, and I was in it for like a lifelong change. I needed to change my lifestyle, and I happened upon macros. So I found a coach that specialized in macros and weight training, resistance training. And the more that I studied weight training, I started to understand that this was really essential for people as they age because we lose muscle mass, as you know, right? So I wanted to at least maintain what I had, although it wasn't a lot, but I also wanted to build muscle. And I was never an athlete, but that was a goal of mine. So I found a coach that specializes in those two things. I started to really up my protein intake. When I started to track macros, I realized that my protein intake was extremely low. Like I had no idea. I was like a carb junkie. And I never even really focused on that. So probably ate 4 times as much protein as I had ever really been eating. And, you know, tracking macros in a deficit to lose weight. I ended up losing 50 pounds in 8 months that way. And resistance training incredible. 5 times a week, going from 0 to 5 times a week. And I started out slowly, not a lot of weight, worked my way up to, you know, barbells and advanced, but it was a progression. And I can say that today I'm actually honestly in the best shape of my life at 53. I've never had the physique that I have in my life before, even in my 20s.
Incredible. Way to go. There's 3 components of this part of the story that I'd like to unpack. The first is, how do you get into the gym? If you've never lifted weights before, what are the first couple of days like? How do you had a coach, so you kind of had an idea of what to do. Were they there with you or were you on your own?
Fully remote. So they would send me my workout programming via an app. And for each exercise, there was a video. So I would study how to do it. And I would simply, you know, do my best. There were a lot of things I had never done before. And I would actually videotape myself on the things that I wasn't sure if my form was correct, send it to my coach, and they would correct it that way. So it was a fully remote coaching program.
Excellent. What was your recovery like initially? How long did it take so step back a second. What was the intensity? Were you going to exhaustion or were you shy of exhaustion?
Well, first of all, I started in the middle of COVID. And it's odd because I know a lot of people gained weight in COVID, but I was like, there has never been a better time in my life to get fit because I have time. I'm at home. I'm cooking all my meals. Like, this is it. So that was actually really helpful.
For sure.
So I actually started out in my guest bedroom with just some dumbbells, which were hard to come by back then. You couldn't even find, you know, dumbbells. People were buying these things.
And they were so expensive. We were driving all around the city.
Exactly. Like remote, you know, work was just, you know, working out at home became a thing, right? So the program that I was on at the time, these workouts should have taken me like 45 minutes. They literally would take me 2 hours because I was so exhausted doing them. And I was just not used to moving. But quickly, I mean, fairly quickly, within a few months, it got easier. And then after I lost the weight is about the time gyms became open. And that's when I started to go and actually lift in a gym. So at first, I would say I did get sore, but only at first. You know, when I get a new training block and something's new and your muscles are being used in a different way, you know, there's some soreness, but truly these days I do not. So I would say anyone that's contemplating doing this, you know, it's hardest in the beginning and it quickly gets much easier.
Mm-hmm. Good point. We have difficulty getting people started in weight training.
Yes.
For all ages.
Have you heard the phrase, the heaviest weight your lift is the gym door? You know, just getting yourself in the door. That is the heaviest weight.
I'm going to use that. There's newbie gains to talk about.
Yes.
What experience so you're doing 5 days a week, even initially. What was your first month or two like in terms of body composition change or even strength change?
I definitely got a little bit stronger, but it took a while to see any body composition changes because even if I was building muscle, it was under a layer of fat. So I would say I didn't even really see visually any muscle definition for at least 5 months. And that's kind of hard, right?
Definitely. If you've tried all these diets, how do you then stay focused if you haven't seen any change in a couple of months?
Well, I was seeing fat loss. So I lost weight
Oh,
really the
good.
first week and consistently, slowly thereafter. So by the time I saw muscle definition, I had probably lost 35 pounds. It took that much weight loss
Hmm.
to start to reveal, right, the muscle I had built. And the way I thought about this
Hmm.
is I thought I was making myself a gift, the best gift that you can make. And I was slowly unwrapping it over time. So as my fat shed, I was slowly revealing this gift that I was building underneath. So it is an act of faith. And I talk to people about this.
Hmm.
It really is. You just have to believe that it's happening, and you're slowly unwrapping this gift that you will see and reap the rewards. But it takes time.
It does. It does. And you can see the change quickly if you're using a body composition scale. Maybe not one at home that just does the lower leg, but if you're doing like a full body one, so a place if you're working out or seeing a physician who has one of those, it can be so valuable because you can see change in the first couple of weeks. But the
Right.
key couple of things that you've mentioned so far that are quite empowering to me, we'd use this type of protocol a lot here, which is we increase the protein. The
Yes.
thermic effect of food of protein
Yes.
is 20%. So when you eat 200 calories worth of protein, 40 of those calories actually go into the digestion of that protein, whereas it's only 10% for carbs and 2% for fat. So just by shifting your macros, already you're getting that deficit advantage. Did you
Yes.
feel satisfied or were you hungry in this deficit? What was it like for you?
Only in the beginning, when I had really made that change those first 2 initial weeks, and then my body adjusted. And I really,
Mm.
honestly, I never felt like I suffered. And I think that was kind of the key, because the great thing about macros is it's not like we're just eating chicken, broccoli, and rice, all the time. It's not like bland. I really did make sure that I ate foods that I truly enjoyed. And every day I had a square of chocolate because I like chocolate, right? That kept
Yeah.
me going. And I knew if I had something at the end of the day to look forward to, that would keep me on track. So I never felt like I suffered. I didn't really feel hungry except in the initial period. I don't want to say it felt easy, but it was a lifestyle that I
Mm.
quickly adapted to and started to embrace.
So you weren't hungry, tired, having cravings. So it seemed like it was doable.
Oh, I was tired sometimes. I was definitely tired
Mm.
sometimes. Those days you push in the gym, you get a little tired, but it was definitely doable. And it wasn't a suffering kind of tired. It was a tired born out of, I knew I had made great effort, and, I could still get through it, but it was definitely satisfying.
Yes, okay, there's a satisfaction that comes with that type of fatigue.
Exactly.
Totally, totally. The second part of this is the afterburn from the weight training. People don't
Hmm.
realize that when you're weight training, you're not burning a ton of calories. There's not a lot of activity happening during the session, but the recovery process is significant. It ramps up your total daily energy expenditure quite a bit when you're recovering from these sessions. And if you hit 5 days a week, all of a sudden you're having to be in this constant state of recovery. And if you're not too
Yes.
hungry, then you can do it. So, did you have a calculator? It's part of the app, a calculator, like how much of a deficit were you in to achieve this result? And was the afterburn kind of accounted for in that deficit?
No. So my macros are set by my coach, and oddly enough, I still to this day have not calculated what kind of deficit I was in. My guess is I was in about a 20%. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
for
because
sure.
then I didn't really know it. I was just like, okay, I'll do. I'm that person that it's like, this is going to work. I'm hiring you as an expert. You give me something, I'm just going to do it. So I just did it. I'm finding now that I've become a macros coach. Not everybody has that approach to it. It's hard to get people to stay on track, but I would guess my deficit was about 20%. I never plateaued and I was able to keep going. But it wasn't the type of tracking where we then accounted for things and added foods in for recovery and that. I did have higher macros on my training days versus non-training days though. And that was helpful. So we definitely, and it's still to this day, I have more carbs before and after my workouts versus the rest of the day. So probably 50% of my
Great, I
carbs
love that.
happen pre and post. And then the rest of the day is a little bit less carbs, but it's not low carb.
Oh,
I have more
excellent.
carbs than anything.
Mhm.
Still to this day, I've always had more carbs than even protein. So you need that for energy. And that really helped me sustain my energy in the gym as well.
Good for you. What were the key protein sources, or what are? I'm sure you continue to eat in a very similar split. What are the key
Hmm.
protein sources for you?
Well, it's interesting. I was a pescatarian when I started this. And so it was a lot of fish, Yogurts, I rely on yogurt a lot. Some cheeses, some low-fat cheese. I make protein waffles every day, like Kodiak cakes. That really
Smart.
gets me to my protein targets. I average about 30 grams of protein per meal I eat 5 times a day. But what I had found just this year, I started craving hamburgers. And it was like out of the blue. I had been a pescatarian for 8 years. And all of a sudden, all I could think about were hamburgers for like 7 months, just out of the blue. And I finally thought, my body is telling me something. Like I've really gotten to this point in life where I really listen to my body. And I started eating meat again. And what was interesting is a lot of the sort of health issues that I was having a lot of bloating and fatigue and just digestion issues have actually really improved since starting to eat meat again. So more recently, beef is definitely a source for me, and turkey. Like animal proteins is a great way to get your protein. And I just had not been fully taking advantage of that. So it's been an evolution, and really it's born out of me truly trying to listen to my body and give it what it needs.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I like that approach where you're listening to what your body is telling you and trying to stay in tune. You didn't really need to shift to animal proteins. You were doing well with pescatarian. Am I correct in that?
Absolutely. If anything, I'd go over my protein targets every day. Like, when people say they have a hard time meeting their protein, I'm usually over. And really that's from, I would have typically, fish at one meal. I would often have something sort of beans, sometimes tofu at another meal. Like I said, yogurt is a big thing. I mean, it really, if you explore all the worlds, protein, it's not that hard. I would add protein powder to things. I might add protein powder to yogurt. I'd put collagen in my coffee. There's a lot of little opportunities in the day to sort of sneak in protein into your meals. And I think you have to take advantage of that to hit these targets.
You really do. You really do. Once you get your targets, you have to focus on what's going to work for your life. I work with a lot of vegetarians and vegans, and so I make these specialized plans, and have had some kind of wild looking meal plans where we're having protein powders with odd things mixed in with the oats. You're making this little mush type of thing, but whatever it takes to hit these macros at this point, because the benefit is coming. It's coming if you can do it.
Exactly. Oh, and I should say egg whites.
Egg whites can be so valuable.
Egg whites are my best friend. So that's a big one for me too.
How would you use them?
So I do. You reminded me with the oats. So I actually mix egg whites into my oats. So I'll put 100 grams of egg whites into oats. You whisk it very, briskly. It actually gives it a lot of volume, and you can get quite a bit of protein out of an oatmeal. I'll put it in my waffles. I will just make a sandwich with, I used to make it with vegetarian bacon and an egg white sandwich, because I was watching my fat macros. It's like this balancing act to try to get the macros, right where you need it. But I probably have more egg whites than anything.
I bet you do. I like the egg whites with the oatmeal, making it into a protein pancake. I like doing that.
Oh, yeah, that's good too.
You put them together and then fry it up like that. That works.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Can you talk to me a little bit about your objective data? Tell me about the lab work you had before and the lab work you have now. What type of changes have you seen with this type of transformation? Remember, for the audience, it's muscle gain and 50 pounds of fat loss.
Right. So I am no longer pre-diabetic. I would say that is the biggest thing. And I'll be honest, I started at 50 and now I'm 53, and my hormones are still not balanced, right? I'm going through a lot of changes in my body, but I do not experience issues. I don't have a lot of symptoms from these hormonal changes. And I fully attribute that to my lifestyle. I know that if I were not training like I am, and got my weight down, that my hormonal issues would be much more severe than they are today. Really, I barely notice, that I'm going through these changes physically. Although my lab work will show, I'm still trying to balance those things naturally. So that to me is the biggest thing. I personally think that this is really an answer for women in midlife going through these hormonal changes to kind of minimize some of the symptoms that we typically experience.
I would agree with you. The muscle tissue has an ability to contribute to hormonal regulation. It contributes to immune balance and hormonal balance at the same time. It's very interesting the way that the muscular system has this type of impact. Having less fat, of course, prevents you from storing xenoestrogens, bad estrogens, for example. But having more muscle tissue actually can be incredibly favorable for hormonal control. So I'm totally into it. I'm interested to know about your periodization. So tell me a little bit about how the strength training program or the fitness program in general
Mm-hmm.
evolved over time. Was there 8 to 12 week protocols, longer, shorter, and how did you know when to shift, and what did the shifts look like for you?
Right. So I have been with a coach this entire time. So about 3.5 years now, two different coaches, and it's looked identical. So I work under training blocks that last 4 weeks. Some of those training blocks are very high volume, high reps, low weight. Some of them, they kind of switch them up where it's, heavy weights, lower reps. Really, I work under progressive overload. So within these training blocks, every week I try to either lift a little heavier, do more reps, increase tension to make it harder to really promote hypertrophy, muscle growth. And really over time, it's changed from, I started with bands and dumbbells to my home to now I'm, squatting, deadlifting, and bench pressing. And I've taken various, powerlifting workshops to try to really change my form so that I can really lift heavier weights. I think the thing for women, most women is, we're afraid there's this fear of lifting heavy weights because you're going to get bulky, right? Like this is and you probably hear this, right? I don't want to lift weights because I don't want to get bulky. And what I have learned is for you to become bulky, like truly super muscular, like you see, bodybuilders, that takes an amount of dedication and years that is just, it's not going to happen. Like, it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You want to lift those heavy weights. There's no such thing as toning, I hate to say. You want to lift those heavy weights to really build your muscles. That look that women want is from lifting heavy in the gym. It's not from lifting, 10-pound weights and doing the same thing repeatedly. It's from sort of this progressive overload and really challenging yourself.
Vitamin Lab revolutionizes personalized supplements, empowering health practitioners to create tailored supplement formulations that address each patient's unique needs. Bring personalized health to your practice and choose from over 200 professional-grade ingredients to create vitamin formulas that improve patient adherence and result in tangible outcomes. All ingredients are sourced from the world's most trusted suppliers, and Vitamin Lab provides hands-on support to help you formulate and launch personalization to your patients. Say hello to a new era of personalized supplement solutions. Go to getvitaminlab.com/personalized to save $100 off your first formula.
I completely agree. What I see typically in the practice is when people have a difficult time following the deficit, then there could be this, a slight risk of overconsumption in the first, few weeks, or maybe even up to a month or two, where the muscles are filling with water because they're a bit inflamed from the training.
Yes.
But we haven't been able to eat in a deficit because we haven't figured out what clicks for their lifestyle. And so they haven't had any fat loss. And so that peripheral fat that's on top of them, it feels like it's more.
Yes.
But it's not. The muscles are just inflamed and the peripheral fat is still there. And we can grow muscle and to be in a deficit at the same time, but it's going to take time to get the nutrition plan sorted for them. That peripheral fat can be quite tricky for some people. Fortunately, in the first few weeks, you didn't really experience that type of like that bloat or that bulk that people discuss that really throws people off.
Right. No, and they think, I'm getting muscular too fast. And it's not, that's not it. That's not what's happening. And then they give up. You really do have to stick with it. It's like anything. We didn't gain the weight overnight, and it takes time to lose the weight, right? And it's about a lifestyle. It's about getting your life back. It's about a permanent change. So, having that long-term perspective is just so critical.
It really is. Can you tell me a little bit about your metabolic rate? Have you been able to eat the same amount of food, or have you had periods eating less or periods eating more over this course of the last 3 years?
So it's been very fascinating to me because, before I tracked macros, just sort of eating and how it affected my body was a mystery, right? I knew if I ate a lot, I'd gain weight, but I didn't really understand what was going on. So I, within this journey have become a competitive bodybuilder. I've done one competition and I'm training for a competition next year. So as bodybuilders, we go through this process. Yeah. So we go through this process. I did my initial cut. I lost the weight. I maintained for a while. And then I actually did a slight build, where I gained weight intentionally. And, I ate in a surplus in order to increase lean muscle mass, sort of very effectively. Then I cut again, and lost the weight again to reveal the new muscle that I had built. And now I'm sort of I just did another small build and I'm in a maintenance period. So I've done all these different, sort of periodizations of like nutrition and really try to manipulate, my muscle gains and growth. And it's been very interesting. We really are in control of what our bodies look like. You really can control that through food and tracking, which I didn't really, ever experience that before. So that's been fascinating. But to answer your question, when I started out, I'm not sure exactly how many calories I was eating per day, but I can for sure tell you that I eat far more food today and weigh far less, right? Like because of my muscle, distribution than I ever have in my entire life. So I maintain at about 2,500 calories a day, which for sure I wasn't eating that much previously. And when I was building, I was eating over 3,000. It was like a job, like trying to eat that much food.
So much work.
So it's amazing what our bodies can do. Like when you really become efficient and your metabolic rate increases and you put on muscle mass, you really need a lot of food just to sort of, keep everything going.
Wow. Thank you for the insight. That's really, really cool that you've gone through these phases. I just tested a metabolism for someone after a cut and it was below predicted, but I didn't have a chance to do a baseline. So before they had entered into the cut. So I'm interested to do that. I do these little resting metabolism assessments for people now before and after they do something dramatic. Say they want to do fasting, for example, or they want to do a deep deficit or a big gain. We can do resting tests before and after. I'm actually doing them for afterburn as well. So we're doing them now before and after workouts to see the impact of a workout at a few hours after their actual session. So I think that could be very interesting as well. Just N of one studies, right? How is this thing impacting you as an individual? And how can we hack the system to use that change so that we can get the best possible result in the quickest way? It's super fun for me.
Is that a breath test or how do you test metabolism?
It is. Yeah. We measure the carbon dioxide a person is exhaling. Yeah, that's how we measure resting metabolism and exercise capacity, for example.
Yeah, I'm interested in that. It's interesting.
And next time you're in Vancouver, you have to come in. We'll do it. We'll spend an hour together. I'll measure your metabolism for sure. Well, you're an expert now. Fortunately, your metabolism fit the calculations. So the program that your coach gave you was like perfect. Awesome.
Yes.
It worked. For a lot of people who come to see me, the calculations weren't working for them. They had experience following a macronutrient split that was appropriate and a deficit that seemed right, but it wasn't right because their metabolism was too low. And what they'll say if they watch this, they'll say it's the lifestyle things, right? It's the not sleeping through the night. It's the really high stress. It's the testosterone's in the pits. Tell me a little bit about your lifestyle and the lifestyle principles that you maintained throughout this to support your recovery, to support your motivation, right? Your immune function. What were you doing to keep your body in peak condition so you could actually participate in this?
I've done a lot of things and I've focused more on my body the last 3 years than I ever have. I don't know how to describe it. I almost think of my body as this thing, I've been gifted to like try to take care of, almost like this other entity, right? Like I am its keeper and I have to do the best for this body, right? The biggest thing I would say that changed for me is sleep. I never really understood the impact that sleep has on everything, right? On recovery. It affects your whole world. So a big thing for me, I wear my Oura Ring. That's been a real game changer for me. The data I get from my Oura Ring is incredible. It knows I'm sick before I am, so I really do like look at my data and my stats and kind of change things up sometimes based on what my ring is telling me. And I really focus on getting to bed early. I have the life of like an 80-year-old now. Like I go to bed at 9 o'clock, right? And I get up, early. Like I've really shifted that. And I have a whole sleep routine. I joke, it's like when we're in college, we could just put our head down on a desk and sleep. But when you get older, you have to have this whole sleep routine. I make sure, to turn off my electronics and that the room is cool and really try to get this quality sleep and deep sleep. And I pay attention to deep sleep. I do things like I go to physical therapy. If there's any little nagging thing, I don't ignore it. I was someone who would ignore little things and hope it went away. I get massages. I practice gratitude. That is something that has been big for me. I guess, I'm not a meditator, but in terms of trying to focus on stress and how to handle stress, because we all have stresses, right?
Yeah.
Gratitude has been a big thing for me. And I was just talking about this yesterday. I read a study that anxiety and gratitude can exist in the brain at the same time. And I thought that was really powerful, right? So if we can focus on gratitude, that for me has been a big shift and kind of gets me centered. So, I do all the things. I really do focus on just trying to keep in a calm state, get good sleep, and take care of my body, in every way that I can.
You do all the things, but the three that really jump out to me, that we don't have to use the title of meditator, but the visioning and the gratitude,
Yes.
right? The visioning and the gratitude, and then promoting the sleep.
Yeah, I guess it's my version.
It's your version. I love it. It's so important. You've got this laser beam focus, and it's not just happening on a whim. You're practicing these things. I think it's helping to keep the focus and the motivation. And now you're just having fun, like you're engaged and you like it and you want to just keep on going, which I absolutely love.
You have to be intentional. That's the thing I've realized as we age, we have to be very intentional about our health. Like before, it was just sort of easy and things sort of fell into place, but our bodies do change and you have to be very intentional about how you take care of them and give them what they need and shift shift priorities to accommodate what your body needs, as we age. And I believe that if we can do these things, we can really age optimally. And for decades to come, I'm going to be bodybuilding when I'm 80. Like this is my lifestyle. And I know that I'm going to be vital as I age, and that gives me great comfort, and I'm excited about my future. But we have to, again, be intentional about doing these things so we can age in the best way possible.
Definitely. Oh, that intent is absolutely essential. Did you have any supplementation routine that supported you along the way, maybe helped with your recovery? Were you taking anything that you thought was valuable?
A few things. So I definitely take creatine, and I get asked this all the time. Do you take creatine? And more than I do, but from what I understand, it's the most studied supplement on the planet. And not only does it have great effects for muscle and muscle retention and development, but even cognitive health. They keep just finding there's more benefits with it. So 5 grams of creatine a day has definitely been something I've done since the beginning. In the beginning, when I would get sore, and even now, if I have those days that are particularly tough in the gym and I have some soreness, I'll take some turmeric, for inflammation. So those are kind of the go-tos. But the way that I actually approach supplementation is, and this is something new that I've done too the last 3 years, I get my blood work done. I mean, a very thorough blood work, urinalysis, even had a fecal test recently, to kind of see what's going on with my gut health, twice a year. And based on those results, those are the supplements I take. So I'm more strategic about it. I don't guess anymore. It used to be I would just sort of take certain things and think I should take a B and a C and a D. I didn't know. But now I really learned what my body needs through these tests. And my doctor will say, okay, these are the things we need to take and focus on. And that changes, every 6 months. The other thing I will say that I take that I really think is valuable is magnesium. And that has helped me both with sleep, my sleep routine. So magnesium and ashwagandha. Those are 2 things I combine at night. That is the one symptom I've had with perimenopause is I do wake up in the night. Those 2 have helped tremendously with my sleep.
Can you tell me about the deep sleep changes you've seen with those 2? Have you seen any changes with your Oura Ring data?
Every time, it's like magic. I take like magnesium glycinate and ashwagandha. I think it's 1,000 milligrams is what I take. 2 500 milligram pills. I sleep deeper. I take it about an hour before bed, and I do not wake up. I mean, it really has changed things for me significantly. The other thing I do, again, I guess I do meditate. And this sounds almost funny, I'll lay in bed, when I was really having trouble with my deep sleep, because I would have nights where I'd get none, like for weeks in a row. And I started to envision myself falling into this deep sleep as I was going to bed. I'd lay there and I would think about the sleep from like my toes to my head and just really like settling in that deepness. And I would fall asleep that way. And the nights I did that, it did make a difference. Like I would get deep sleep those nights. I mean, I don't know if that did it, but it worked for me. So,
I started that at such a young, I was at 14 years old. I was envisioning an entire basketball game. I would spend 20 minutes before every game. This is as a silly young guy. I would envision the entire basketball game, start to finish. I would take 20 minutes to go through every single play. And you know what? A lot of those plays that I envisioned, they would happen. like
That's
me hitting a
amazing.
3 from the corner or something like this. If I saw it in my mind's eye before, it would
Yes.
happen, and that made me like really encouraged about this. So
Yes.
you've been working on the visioning. I love that. I love
I
that.
think it works. Honestly, I've had things happen to me this year that I have really envisioned happening. And then I think I know I'm going to sound, I was never this person. It sounds funny, but I think you put those things out in the universe and you really focus on them and they're drawn to you. I really do.
You're also tracking and having objective data along the way. So you've got,
Yes.
the Aura Ring where you're able to track deep sleep, and seeing a positive change with the magnesium ashwagandha is
Yes.
such a big win. And then you know that you can turn to that whenever you need, which
Yes.
I absolutely love. I'm so into it because I've been trying to build out a deep sleep protocol for people, something that I could individualize as needed. Like we use ashwagandha, for example, at that dose when we're trying to suppress cortisol or boost testosterone. Those are a couple things that we do with that type of dosing strategy. But if someone has low cortisol already, my experience has been that it doesn't work. In fact, it could make things worse. But if someone has a high cortisol, high stress hormone release, it can be so good, especially combined with magnolia and phosphatidylserine. But magnesium is an awesome combination that I would turn to too. So I'm really into that big time.
Yeah, I love it.
The creatine conversation, we could go very deep on creatine, but you're right. It's the best studied supplement in history.
Yes.
Did you do a loading phase? Did you do 20 grams for a week or two, or did you go straight to 5?
I didn't, and I've read about that and I read both sides and I just started with 5. And you again know more than I do, but what I have read too, it doesn't really matter when you take it as long as you take it every day around the same time, like get into a routine with it. And so that's what I did. I take it in the morning, usually before my workout at some point, like directly before. And I've done that since the very beginning. And I do think I think I've reaped benefits.
Amazing. Did you have any side effects initially that maybe are common, or something that you even felt, okay, this is a bit uncomfortable, but I'm going to stick with it?
No, I mean, I was actually afraid to take it at first because I'd also read, people gained weight from it. And when you're someone who is losing weight, in this process in the beginning, when I was very focused on the scale, losing weight and really working hard at it, I was like, oh, I don't want to take something that I'm going to gain weight. But I really didn't even notice that. And anything that, the little bump that I did get went away within a few days. So I would say, anyone that's contemplating taking it, that weight gain is very temporary. And it shouldn't be a deterrent because the benefits far outweigh any small, water retention that you're getting in the beginning.
I completely agree. I would also say, and I learned this from a naturopath recently, that is, you don't have to take the full dose. You don't have to take the 5 grams. In my Vitamin Lab protocol and my powder that I consume, I just put 1,000 milligrams. I only eat fish, and I eat fish. I try to do 4 or 5 days a week. So that's the only sort of animal protein other than eggs that I'm exposed to, and so I feel like I need it. But if I take 5 grams, I get a rash.
Oh, really?
And it's happened since I was young. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, but at 1 gram, fine, all good, and can do it every day for a long period of time. So, and I'm experiencing benefits from that. So my point for people is that you don't have to, people are usually afraid.
Right.
You don't have to do 20 grams for 2 weeks. You don't even have to do 5 grams every day. You can just take your stores up slowly, and those muscles will fill a little bit with water. They'll be more powerful, and you'll be able to do a little more work, have a little more energy in the gym. And you might see some strength changes and some hypertrophy change a little bit quicker, and it might support your recovery as well. But the comment on brain function, I think, is quite important, considering one of the key reasons I wanted to speak with you was about body composition change after menopause, right? The loss of bone mass, the reduction of estrogen signaling in the brain, for example, the challenges of having low estrogen on the cardiovascular system. Creatine can be quite supportive in this period of life to make sure that muscle stays healthy, which will have downstream effects. Have you had assessments, for example, bone density assessments, where you have, looked to see if you're able to maintain your bone density through this time?
It's interesting. That's actually something I have thought I want to do more of. I did one DEXA scan, right after my competition, because I was curious what my body fat was. Of course, I just
For
competed.
sure.
I was 11%. And by the way,
Good.
it's not fun being that, people are like, oh, I want to be real low body fat. It's like, no, you actually don't want to be that lean. Like, it's not fun. You have no energy. I was freezing cold all the time. Like, you don't want to live there. It's like for a moment in time. And at that point, my bone density was in the normal range, but on the low end of normal, which was interesting. And I think it actually, I'm sure, would have been worse, had I not been bodybuilding for 3 years. So I think that's a very important thing. And I'm actually interested we're getting these little centers in the US, like around me, where they just do DEXA scans. Like, it's very easy now to get scanned, and it's not very expensive. So that's something I'd like to incorporate, as part of my yearly, maybe do that once or twice a year and kind of just get a baseline for bone density in particular, because that is a very big concern as we age.
It absolutely is. I think you can maintain this level for the rest of your life with the lifestyle that you have. I think you'll be just fine. But I'm excited that you were considering to add that to your program. But let's talk about the pulsing of your tests. So blood and urine and maybe now bone density every 6 months. I'm so into that. It's a great schedule. How are you going to stick with it? How are you going to get there every 6 months? What's your strategy for staying on point?
Well, what's interesting, my doctor is fully remote. So the doctor that I'm using now, I just speak to them remotely. They send the tests. It's very easy for me to get those tests done. We go over them remotely. They prescribe my supplements. So it almost is like there's no excuse, right? I don't have to, try to get to a doctor's office. I mean, it really is very easy these days to kind of keep up with your health. And like I said, I think as we age, you have to be an active participant in your health. Even when I will say, when I go over these things with my doctors, they don't just say, oh, take this, this, and this. And I go, okay. I actually research it, and I look up the labs, and I look at, like, how do I interpret this? Because I know there's different ways to interpret lab work. And so I'm really trying to educate myself on what does this mean? Because I think we all need to be aware of what's going on with our own bodies. There's all different kinds of doctors, and you just don't want to take someone's word for it. You want to understand what you're looking at, take in what they say, but also feel like that's the right protocol for you. And so I really today am a much more active participant in my health and healthcare and aging and working hard at it than I ever have, because that's what it takes to age optimally. Like, if your goal is to thrive as we age, these are the things you have to do. You can't just sit on the sidelines and expect people to do it for you. You've got to do it yourself.
Well, you've taken that education piece very, very seriously. And that might be the strongest message for people watching, for the naturopathic physicians and the integrative docs out there who have a focus on educating the public. This is really powerful, right? To teach about the benefits of having a little bit of extra muscle, the benefits of, following a subtle deficit for a period of time. This can be incredibly powerful, but it sounds like that's the next step for you. You're entering into, is it going to be a teaching type of realm, or what is the next step for you in your journey of health promotion, not only for yourself, but for the public?
Well, I actually just left my business that I had built. I had for 22 years, because I'm so connected to this. Like, this is my purpose now, is helping middle-aged women age optimally through strength training and macros, right? Nutrition and mindset, because without the mindset, these things, that's the thing that makes it lasting and keeps us on track. So my business actually launches tomorrow, and I will be a coach, just like I have a coach for macros, strength training, and mindset.
Incredible. Oh, great. Where can our audience connect with you if people are looking to ask you more questions or consult with you virtually? How can they connect with you?
I would say 2 ways. So my website is going live tomorrow. It's rebellionbody.com. So the name of my company is Rebellion Body, because I feel like in middle age, we're rebelling against this narrative, right? That we're supposed to, as women, the hormonal changes happen. We inevitably gain weight, and then we have nothing to look forward to. We're just supposed to accept that that's what happened. Our bodies change, and we're out of, it's out of our control. So I'm rebelling against this. So rebellionbody.com, or my Instagram is 50 Fitness Journey, FIFTY Fitness Journey.
Excellent. Oh, that's incredible. Those are great names, by the way.
Thank you.
Good social handle and great website name. Tell us, in the spirit of personalization, we ask this question on every episode. Tell us something about you that maybe your audience that you have currently doesn't know about you.
Okay. Well, two things. One, I love Halloween. So this is like, I'm excited we're talking Halloween. I'm a big Halloween fan.
Oh, no, come on. Not Halloween.
And it's funny, I don't dress up for anything, but I just love everything about Halloween. And really the big thing is I always wanted to be a writer. Like I've always wanted to write my whole life. I feel like one day I would love to write a book. And I've never really talked about this, but since I was young, this has been sort of a goal of mine. And what's funny is in this transformation journey, as you become more full of yourself and you feel strong, your confidence builds. And it's really given me the confidence to chase my dreams. So I think I'm going to write a book one day. Like that's my big goal now.
You definitely will.
Yeah, I think so.
You absolutely will. There's no doubt. I think you have enough information from this one podcast alone.
There you go.
For sure. You've got your pillars, right? You've got your nutrition pillar, the macros.
Yes.
You've got your exercise pillar. You've got the strength training with the periodization. And you've got the mental emotional. You've got the mindset piece organized. It's all there. I don't want to write your book for you, though.
No, exactly. But I think my biggest message is we choose how we age. If you're willing to work hard at it and take control of your health, you can age beautifully, have decades of a full life, doing whatever you want, still achieving your dreams, being vibrant. But it really is a choice. You know, if we're willing to work for it, we can really have what we want in midlife and beyond. And I think that's the important message I'd like to get across.
That's an excellent message. Is that the message? If we were to look back, say 3 or 4 years ago, and you were talking to yourself at that time, maybe there's women or coaches or even physicians watching now who are working with people who are at that stage of life. What is the message that you would say to yourself that might get this process started before the ring didn't fit?
That if you are willing to work hard and be consistent, because it's not about perfection. You don't have to be perfect, right? But you have to be consistent. You can have an amazing life well into your 60s, 70s, even 80s. You have so many more valuable years where you can contribute and achieve your dreams and just have an amazing life. But it's going to take daily healthy choices. You know, so again, focusing on that future and being excited about it because it's there and it's waiting for you, but you have to make these daily choices that are going to get you there.
I love that message. That's an excellent message. That's a great way for us to end today, Denise. Thanks so much for your time. It's rebellionbody.com. We'll be live November 1st. And tell us your Instagram handle one more time.
50 Fitness Journey.
Excellent. Thanks so much for joining us today, Denise. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks for joining us for today's discussion. What about today's podcast resonated with you? Be sure to tag at Dr. David Dizer and at Get Vitamin Lab. If you're learning from and enjoying this podcast, please let us know by subscribing to our YouTube channel and follow the show on Spotify and Apple. And don't forget to leave us a review. It's the best way to support our podcast and it helps others find us. To learn more or book a demo to explore what personalization could do for your practice, please go to www.getvitaminlab.com/personalized.